Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
How are you?
Thank God.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Let's continue a bit, Yosef. It says like this. V'adoni, V'ani Omer, it says, no. V'avi Adoni says, my father, Zal Katav she'en etzarfo ad she'avi shte serot. He wrote that you shouldn't combine somebody who's katan until he has two hairs. Lo letfilah v'lo lebrachot and birkat hamazon. Not with prayer, not for prayers and not for birkat hamazon. Tzarich shiu kulam b'makom echad. Also, another thing is they have to be all in one place, right? So this is a famous sugya topic, which is important to understand, especially for the men, right? That when you have a minyan, they all have to be in one room, one place, basically, the whole minyan. Otherwise, they don't combine in many cases. So we're going to see now exactly how that works, but just to preempt that for you to make you understand. So it says, and also shliach tzibur imahem. Also, shliach tzibur has to be with them as well. So they have to be all in one room, one domain, whatever. What about the guy who's standing in the doorway, right? Like, where the mezuzah is? He's standing over there, like in the middle of two rooms, basically. He's not there, he's not here. He's like in the middle. What happens with him? Mina mashkof ulfim. If he's inside the lintel, kelifnim mimenu, it's considered like he's inside the room. But if he's outside the lintel, he's considered outside. What about if some of them are inside, some of them are outside? The shliach tzibur tocha petach, and you have the shliach tzibur who's in the doorway, in the place of the mezuzah. What happens over there? Hayomer Adonai Avi Arosh says, my father used to say, Sheum mitzarfan, that he combines them. The fact that he's in the middle of them. So, okay, let's go step by step here. That's maybe a little bit different there. So we'll go to the Bet Yosef and see where we are there. Yes. Yeah, so it says over here like this. It's a little bit behind. That's what it says in the Rivash. B'tshuva, says the Rivash, Ro'eh ani et, one second. Yeah, at Divrei Rambam. So I agree with the words of the Rambam. He says, Shelo hitir litfilah. They didn't allow, when it comes to prayers, ki'im kulam gdolim, unless they're all bar mitzvah, right? So, in other words, you see from here, the conclusion of the Rivash is like the Rambam regarding what we spoke about yesterday. So what's the conclusion? As I already told you yesterday, the conclusion is that they all have to be adults. Bottom line. Then he goes on to say, so he says, since the Rosh and the Rashba, and also some other rabbis they agree with this opinion. So says Bet Yosef, that's the halacha. So the halacha is that we require gedolim, adults, right? What's adults? 13 years old. That's an adult for this purpose. Also for many other purposes as well. For all the mitzvot. Katuv Mordechai, it says in Mordechai, it says, B'shem Rabbeinu Simcha, name Rabbeinu Simcha, the Eved ve'isha mitzarfin letfilah. Oh, so they say that a slave or a woman can combine for prayers, u'brikat hamazon, also brikat hamazon, b'asara for 10 people, u'pashutu shezeu leperush Rabbeinu Tam. So he said, it's clear that this is according to Rabbeinu Tam. The Pasak Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, because he passed like Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, the Eved, when it comes to a slave, echad, one slave, mistaref, that he combines, one slave does combine, the Sover, Rabbeinu Simcha, so Rabbeinu Simcha holds the Uadin leisha de bechol duchta. So he says same thing also applies to a woman. Then every place isha shava le'eved, that she's considered to be the same as the eved, right? So the slave, they have the same status when it comes to minyan. So since Rabbeinu Tam himself, even though he was opining like this opinion, but practically speaking, he didn't want to rely on it though. In theory, yes. In practice, no. So he says, so he says, since Rabbeinu Tam himself didn't want to do it, so then how can we do it, right? We don't even hold like that. So the one who held like that was him. He himself didn't want to rely on that, practically speaking. So all the more so, we should not. Right? So bottom line is that we require 10 adults, males, right? That's pretty much what it is. Very good. So then he goes on to say, right? Again, right, he brings this opinion, which is brought down on Torah. Some allow to combine a katan with 9 people. We talked about this yesterday. How do we do that? It says they put a chumash in his hands. That makes him into an important human, right? He's got a Torah in his hands. So he says, King Katut Shama Tosfot. That's what it says in Tosfot. He says, Sheesh Osin can, that some do like that, some rely on this. So says Rabbeinu Tam that this is a silly minhag, he says. So what do you think? What, chumash is a man? What? How is he going to combine to a minyan because he's holding a chumash? What does that have to do one with the other? Okay. Also, it says we don't find in any place the mehane that chumash makes a minyan. What kind of thing is that? So it says, but there was a story like this, brought down, that they were doing, making a leap year, right? And they were sitting in the attic of some rabbi, the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, is brought down in this book, in the Midrash, Tekama b'shlosha ma'avarin et hashana. It says over there that we need 3 rabbis to do leap year. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Ba'asara. Says Rabbi Eliezer, no, you need 10. Good. Okay, so Ve'im nitma'atu meve'in sefer Torah. So it says if they were diminished, so meaning what? If they're lacking somebody there, they bring sefer Torah, yosin agula, and they make some kind of a circle, whatever. It's whole story there. Then mezkir sham. So in other words, they had this Gemara that when it comes to making a leap year, you can combine Sefer Torah like that to be the 10th guy, whatever, the 10th man. But it doesn't say there that the child should be holding Sefer Torah, right? It just says you bring a Sefer Torah. A little bit different. So he says there also, he only said Ela Sefer Torah Asuya Begilayon. He was only talking about Sefer Torah, which is made with a scroll, right? Aval Chumashin Shelanu, but it says Ar Chumashim. No, not so, right? No, in other words, there's a difference between Sefer Torah and Chumash, right? Chumash is like a book. Sefer Torah is a scroll. So Sefer Torah has like a higher level of sanctity than the Chumash. So it's not the same thing, really. Okay, so then it goes on. V'chen katvu Rosh ve'Mordechai. That's what it says in Rosh Mordechai. Okay, good. The Katab Oda Rosh says also the Rosh. Furthermore, Ma sheyesh b'Yerushalmi, that which is written in Yerushalmi, where is that? Brachot Perek Zayin. Katan v'Sefer Torah osin oto snifin. So it says like the same thing, right? Same idea. That we can combine a katan, which is a child, or a Sefer Torah, to a minyan. Hainu katan or Sefer Torah. That means one or the other, not together. At the Sefer Torah, so one Sefer Torah, Ken Tish'a ve'Aaron it resembles like what we said in the Gemara, that if you have 9 people and the Aron Kodesh, right, the Holy Ark, where the Sefer Torah are, that could also be a minyan. But it says halacha is not like that. That's the thing, right? Again, right? Even though there are opinions like this floating around here, there, Talmud, Rabbeinu Tam, right? All kinds of places, Yerushalmi, blah blah blah. Nevertheless, halacha is not like that. Very nice. Yes, Yerushalmi ish katav. So it says also, there's a Yerushalmi that says, Katuv behen katan, the Sefer Torah, osin oto snif. Again, right, that if you have a katan and Sefer Torah, we can combine them. V'zeh mashma kitzat keminhag haolam. So that's a little bit implies like the custom, the common custom. Or or maybe perhaps his will is Lomar to say Kirat Torah Sheolin Minyan, that the reading of the Torah that they combine, they are counted in the number of readers. The Minyan Shiv'ah. How many readers do we need on Shabbat? 7 readers. So it says in the end of his words, so he concludes like this in the end, right? The most logical opinion, right? The most en osin katan snif l'asara. We don't combine katan to minyan. The Birkat Hamazon, not for Birkat Hamazon, not for prayers. Ad she'avish tes se'arot, unless he has 2 hairs. Mimela. Mashma, so it says from there, you learn So therefore, right, you can see that putting a chumash is not going to help either. That's the way it's implied. The language here, all Sefer Torah, to give Sefer Torah, Bel Katan, to put in the hands of the Katan. That's what it says in Mordechai. So, right, bottom line is, as we said, right, I tried to recap this for you yesterday, so you shouldn't fall asleep. Right, that the halacha is only 10 gdolim, adults, make them again. That's it, right? No Sefer Torah, no chumash, no ark, no children, right? No monkey business, right? That's it. Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, good. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. Here we go. I think we're doing hey, if I'm not mistaken. So it says, So it says in the Shulchan Aruch like this: if he doesn't have two hairs, right? We already mentioned pubic hairs. We're talking about. Even though he's already 13, Dinoke katan, right? So his din is like a katan. We still consider him a child. So he needs two things, right? He needs the age and he needs the hairs. Until what? In other words, what's the cutoff time for this halacha? The cutoff time is until he lived like most of his life, right? So, you know what that means? Most of your life? The average person lives until 70, right? As we say in Tehillim. Even nowadays, by the way, usually the average age is around 70. More or less, right? Give or take. So, that means he has to be like 36, the majority of his lifetime. So what is that going to help you? That even though at that point, right, even though he doesn't have hairs, but since he is already 36 years old, so he's for sure he's a gadol, no matter what. That's what it means to say. Okay, very nice. So he says, what's the reason why that's the cutoff time? So he says, then we already see that he's a saris, right? So as we said, what a saris means, somebody who's never going to go through puberty. He's, I don't know what they call this in English, by the way. Sometimes the word saris means castrate, or eunuch, but maybe it's eunuch. I don't know exactly. Whatever it is. Anyway, you get the idea.
Kavod Harav, is there such case where a male reach puberty?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Is there such case where a male doesn't reach puberty?
Yeah, there are people like this, they're just like, they don't get like a deep voice, like a man. Mm-hmm. And they don't get, hairs, like pubic hairs. They don't get a beard. They look like, they got like a baby face. Baby face. How old are you? I'm 45, but you look like a baby. You know what I mean? That's what it means.
Okay, thank you.
Or like your friend used to say, David, smooth. He's smooth.
Sounds like a fruitcake.
Well, that's already something else. I'm not going to get to that. Okay. We're not talking about dietary issues here. Okay, I'm joking. Okay, so, right. Afilu hu gadol b'shanim. דינו כקטן, right? We already said this. ואם יראה לו סימני סריס, קודם לכן, דינו כגדול. So he says, if he already got signs of being saris, even before that, before the age of 36, whatever, so then we also do count him. So there are certain things that it says in the Talmud, right, which are the signs of a saris. As we said, right, he has like a baby voice, baby face, kind of thing. He never grew up, the kid, the poor kid, always he stayed a child. Okay, whatever. So says the Shulchan Aruch, if that's the case, that he has these signs of saris, then he's already considered to be gadol, right? He's big because it shows that he'll never get those signs of manhood. He'll never have that. It's never going to happen. Okay. All right. I don't want to get sidetracked, but what you said, David, I just want to point out something, that history really shows that, regarding being a homosexual, it really has nothing to do with this issue that we're talking about here. Because a person could be like very masculine, like super masculine.
No, I was just trying to be funny.
Homosexual, you know what I mean?
I know that.
You know that, right? You're very well aware of that.
Yeah.
So one has
I know.
the other,
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you understand.
Yeah, it's just that the correlation I was trying to make maybe is because they behave very feminine and unmanly like, so
I guess you could say that. It's not really feminine. It's more like just like a boy,
Yeah. They behave that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very boyish.
Yeah. But look, we're all God's children.
Okay. All right, so it says the Rama, Umiu and medaktakin b'sarot. So says the Rama, look what he says, something interesting. He says, we're not really so particular about hairs. אלא כל שהגיע לחלש שמותיו, מחזקים אותו כגדול ואומרים, לעניין זה, מסתמה הביא שתי סירות. So this is a very important rule the Rama is bringing here, which is that, when it comes to this issue of participating in a minyan, we don't really have to check the guy, take him into the bathroom and see if he has pubic hairs. We don't need that. In other words, we assume that he has them. If he's already 13, we assume that he has. What's the reason why? So the truth is, there's a Talmud like this, Talmud, it's called Chazakah de Rabbah. Right? It's a Rava's Chazakah, assumption, right? In other words, we assume there's an assumption, presumptive state, that when a person reaches the age of 13, there's already pubic hairs. That's the thing. So therefore, we don't really have to check him. We assume that he has it. So then, what was the Shulchan Aruch talking about, that he doesn't have it? So that means that, like, we saw that he doesn't have. You know what I mean? In other words, if you saw that he doesn't have it, like let's say you're his mother, and you checked him out, you saw, this poor kid, he's still like a boy. So if they saw him like that, so then we know for sure he doesn't have it. But if we didn't see, we assume that he has. This is the halakha, But, Maran Rabbi, my rabbi, he wrote a long essay about this issue, So he writes that applies to the things which are derabanan, which are rabbinical. So minyan is rabbinical, it's only rabbinical. So therefore, when it comes to rabbinical things, we do give this presumptive state to them. We presume that they have it. But if it's something from the Torah, so then we don't presume. We have to check it. Actually, we're more stringent about that. There's a rule like this, right? Safek de'oraita le'chamir. If it's something from the Torah, it's a doubt. We have to be stringent. Safek de'rabanan le'akir. If it's something a doubt from the rabbis, we can be lenient more. The same thing also applies here as well. So there are certain things which are from the Torah, For instance, I'll give you a very, very simple example. Let's say, you have a kid, right? And he's gonna he's gonna blow the shofar for you, right? So what is shofar? From the rabbis or from the Torah? It's from the Torah, So therefore, there we gotta really check the guy, and see if he has it. If he's a young kid, and he's like 13, on the border there, we really got to check him out because otherwise, who knows? Maybe he doesn't have it. So since it's something from the Torah, we can't use a presumptive state to rely on that. Only when it's something when it's from the rabbis. Okay, very good. But by the way, always people ask me this question. Whatever. Not always, but sometimes I get this question. Why is it that when it comes to doubts from the rabbis that we're lenient? Is it because the laws of the rabbis are not important? Is that what it is? They're not so important, so we're lenient. When in doubt, throw it out. Yalla, yeah. So, but what's the big deal? That's not the reason why. The truth is, that it says in the Gemara, 2 places, Masechet Brachot, Masechet Derumin, that a person who transgresses the laws of the rabbis, he's liable to death from heaven. So actually, it's very severe. You transgress the words of the rabbis. So then, why are we lenient when there's a doubt about something from the rabbis? What's the reason for that? So the answer is that the rabbis didn't decree in cases of doubts. They themselves didn't decree. They only decreed when it's for sure. But when it's a doubt, they didn't decree. So therefore, there's no reason to be stringent. You're being more stringent than they are, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like what kind of thing is that? You know what I mean? So that's the way it works when it comes to these things. Just recently now they're doing Daf Yomi, they're doing Masechet Sotah, which is a very important Gemara, Sotah. And over there, it says something, some strong stuff about many things. A lot of strong statements are made over there. So one of the things that it says is that a person who studies Torah, reads the Bible, reads the Mishnah, reads the books, whatever, but he doesn't study with the Chachamim, with the Chachamim of the generation, the big rabbis of the generation. He never studied with them, So it says the Gemara over there, he's considered to be Amaretz. He's considered to be ignoramus, a person like that. Even though he reads all the books, this book, that book, he reads. But if you never studied with the rabbis, with the Chachamim, you don't know how to learn properly. You're not going to come up with the proper conclusions. So you're still considered to be Amaretz if you never learn with the Chachamim. That's the whole thing. So the person has to understand that. Even though you learn halachot, you learn mishnayot, you went through halachot, this halachot, that halachot, but the rabbi told us, Ravadia, that nowadays, if a person learns the poskim, the books of the poskim, like we're learning Bet Yosef, this is the best book of the poskim that we have. So if you're learning, or Shulchan Aruch, right, whatever, all these things, Bet Yosef is even better than Shulchan Aruch because it's more elaborate, it's more comprehensive, it's more deep. Brings all the sources, deliberations. So if a person doesn't have that experience in Torah learning, he's still considered to be an ignoramus, Amaretz. So that's why it's a very crucial element, of Torah learning, to learn with the Chachamim. Don't just sit by yourself, and say take some book, and expect to become a big Chacham like that. It's not going to happen. Unless you're a big, prodigy, that you know how to do it yourself. It's very rare, this kind of thing. Most people don't get to that level. So therefore, right, a person needs to, we call that shimush, right, of the rabbanim, that you serve the right rabbis. What does that mean? You serve? You study with them, and ask questions and, deliberate with them. And this is how you learn how to be a real chacham, to learn with the chachamim. That's a very important factor of Torah study, So this is like an example of why, because if you don't know all these little details, all these rules, when they do apply, when they don't apply, you're going to make a mistake in halakha and give people the wrong halakha. That's what's going to be. Okay, very good. And that's why, by the way, the Gaon Vilna, talks about this, and also many others, that it's not a good idea to learn Kitzur books, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Kitzur this, Kitzur that, Kitzur that. Why? Because the Kitzur just gives you just a law, but doesn't go into the background, the reasons, different opinions, the sources. So when you read just the Kitzur, what happens is that you don't understand what you're really reading, and you're getting the wrong idea from it. So if a person who reads books like this, exactly that's what we're saying. He's amaretz. He's ignoramus. Why? Because he doesn't know what's behind that stuff. He just sees the surface, He doesn't see the depths of it. Okay, very good. That's the idea. So let's go on. Interesting here, the Bet Yosef diverts into some other issue here, but the tour got into the issue of, let me just see what's going on with the Shulchan Aruch here. Okay, we'll do the next one. We'll see what happens. Well, eventually we'll catch up to that stuff, what we saw on the tour. We'll catch up with it. Okay, so it says like this. Katuv B'Agot Maimoniot Perket, right? It says over there in this book, B'Shem Aram, in the name of the Ram, Shem Itchila Echad Litpalel Levado. Let's say one of them started to pray by himself, right? V'eno Yachol La'anot Imahem, and he's not able to answer them anymore. V'en kan ela tish'a sheyuchlu la'anot. So there's only 9 people that can answer. This guy is already in the midst of the prayers. Cannot answer anymore. Afilu Achir says, nevertheless, mitztaref imahem. He does combine with them. Tichtiv v'nikdashti betoch b'nei Yisrael. It says, right, I'll be sanctified in the midst of the people of Israel. Akol asad b'nei kedusha ninhu shchina sharia. So it says, always the shchina is there, divine presence is there when there's 10 people there. So you should know that even a katan, right? Oh, it gives you a good example over here, right? How we know that. So it says, if you have a child, a little baby, who's in the crib, the mitztaref Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. According to Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, he combines with the minyan. We don't pass like that. But it says, even according to the other opinion that argues with this, the reason why he doesn't combine with the minyan is because he doesn't know who he's blessing. He doesn't know God yet, right? He doesn't know his maker. Doesn't know his creator yet. Therefore, he cannot sanctify. It says, but it says, anyway, it's a good idea to wait for him until he finishes his prayers. That he should also have the merit to answer with them. Even if there are 10 people there below who, even without him, it's good to wait for him. That he should also have this merit. Like we explained, but it says only if there's time for prayers. So, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a person who, there's 10 people, right? There's a minyan. And one of them, prays a little bit longer. So what happens is that he finishes later than everybody else. So the question is, now everybody's finished except him, and he's the slowpoke. He takes longer than everybody else, So the question is, should we wait for him or not? So it says Bet Yosef, technically speaking, we don't have to wait for him. And what's the reason why? Even though he can't answer you right now because he's in the middle of the prayers, nevertheless, since there's 10 people there, the Shekhinah is there, the divine presence is there. So therefore it's good. But he says that nevertheless, it's a good idea to wait for him if it's possible. That everybody should finish, because you're giving him the zechut, the merit to answer also for the kedusha, for all these things. So why not wait for him, But the truth is, that this has a limit, this halakha, you know what I mean? The guy's like really, really takes a long time. The tzibur can't wait for him, because they have to leave, they have to go. So, if he takes a really, really long time, if we're talking about like 1 or 2 minutes, okay, so no problem. People can wait a little bit. But if we're talking about 5-10 minutes already, that's already, it's not practical to wait for a guy like that. And nobody does, by the way. Nobody waits for them like this, unless they're very, pious people. These people, what can I tell you? But usually, they don't wait. So therefore, the rule is that we can start without him. If he's really, really slow, and he's not going to make it for a long time, we can't wait for him. People have to go. They have what to do. They have to go to his job. They have to go to work. Blah blah blah. So we can't wait for one person 5-10 minutes. It's too much. But 1 or 2 minutes we can wait. No big deal.
What about if it's for Abram?
What, Avraham Avinu?
No, Rabbi Abram at our synagogue.
Ah, okay. Well, we'll talk about off the air. Off the air, we'll discuss.
I would certainly wait for you.
Oh, God bless you. God bless you. You're so nice. Okay, so now, right, as we said, Umikan Lamad Mori Harav. So it says Bet Yosef. From here it says, my rabbi learned, right? Who was his rabbi? Rabbi Gadol Marav Yaakov Berav. Yaakov Berav, that was his rabbi. That was one of his rabbis. Shim Haya Echad Yashen. Oh, so he says like this, right? If one of them is sleeping, Mitzaref, he does combine with the minyan, even though he's asleep. Im Tisha, with 9 guys who are awake, right? The Kaddish and Kedusha, for Kaddish and Kedusha, the Chevan Deika Asara, because since you have 10 people, right? Devnei Kedusha, and they're all, adults, whatever, right? Shapir Sharia, Shechinta Alayim. So therefore, the divine presence is there, even though the guy is sleeping. He dozed off there, So it's still considered to be a minyan, even though he's sleeping. Yeah, so it's important to know that, by the way. Because this does happen once in a while, somebody dozes off there. And, you have to know what to do.
So next time I show up on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, I'll just doze off.
Oh, God. Well, you know what it says, right? And it says in Gemara Yerushalmi, the person who dozes off on Rosh Hashanah, his mazal dozes off. So you don't want to do that, right? Okay. So here we go. So it says, so it says, afterwards I saw that Agur writes, Reish Nun Bet, this language there. Nishal Gadol Ador, Mari Molin. So it says this great rabbi was asked Al Asara Shayu Bebet Knesset, regarding 10 people in the shul. Ve'ashen echad mehem, one of them is sleeping. Im yecholim litpalel, can they pray like that? Right, again, same question. Even though he's sleeping. So he answers like this, right? The Rabbeinu Tam even combines a baby, as we already mentioned, which is in the crib. It says, granted that the Rosh wrote that you need 10 people who are paying attention. But it says, the custom is that we do combine them, even though they're talking, mundane words. I forgot the Libim says, even though my heart is a little bit weary about this, the Shema Kol Harawi Lebila En Bila Mekevet. Bo Ad Kanashano. So he says maybe, right? Maybe it doesn't work like that. Kedai hu Mori Zal Ismoch Alav. So says Bet Yosef, that says my rabbi is definitely worth it to rely on him. In other words, he's big enough to rely on him. So therefore, he paskins over here the halacha, which is that if you have some guy sleeping there, right? There is still a minyan, nevertheless. Okay, good. Very nice. Let's see the Shulchan Aruch on this. So he says like this, right? Let's say one of those guys, he jumped up, jumped in advance, right? He jumped ahead. He started to pray before everybody else. I'm talking about the Amidah, the silent prayer. So therefore he cannot answer now, right? That's it. Or let's say he's sleeping, right? The other option. He says, nevertheless, he does combine with them. So that's exactly what we said, right? That these two cases, when somebody's sleeping or he's can't answer because he's praying, he still is considered to be a part of the minyan, nevertheless. Okay, there's one more Shulchan Aruch on this one. I think, if I'm mistaken, yeah. So it says, if one of them is praying by himself, so it's proper that the other should wait for him. From not say Kaddish until he finishes. You know that he should also merit, right, to hear the Kaddish. Very good. Yeah, I can tell you, from my experience with the Rabbi of Shalman, Ravadia, this custom was like this, that his weekday prayer was about like 4 or 5 minutes on the average. And Shabbat, he prayed like 3 minutes, because it's much less blessings there. It's only 7 blessings. On the weekday, it's 19. So what I'm trying to say is that he wouldn't wait too much, after that. If there was already like a majority of the minyan was already ready to go, they finished already, he would make them start, he didn't want to wait because, he wanted to go and learn Torah because he didn't want to, this to be bitul Torah for him. So therefore, he wouldn't wait too long. He only a limited amount of time. For him, it was like, it was emergency. It was urgent. He had to go and study, so he didn't wait too much. As we said, like 1 or 2 minutes we can wait, but 5-10 minutes already, I don't think anybody will wait for you that much. That's very far-fetched. Good. Let's go on. So now it says like this, right? In the Bet Yosef. Katuv b'tshuvat Maril. It says in the Tshuva of the Maril, Cheresh shemedaber ve'eno shomea. So we have somebody, right, who's deaf. What's the rule with him? Im yesh l'tzarfu l'asara. Can we combine him to the minyan? So he says, Lo yadana. He says, I don't know. He says, I don't know. My kami bayala. I don't know what's the question. Lemor ha kaimalan harehu kipikach. So he says, what's the question? In other words, it's obvious that he's considered to be a person who's deaf, but he can talk. He's considered to be intelligent. So therefore, we have no problem to combine him with a minyan. He has intelligence. He has right. He has a mind. In other words, he's not retarded. Basically, right. That's what we're trying to say. Because somebody who's retarded doesn't make a minyan. But this guy, we have no reason to assume that he's retarded. Why is that? Because he speaks. So if he can speak, he's not a retard, right? He's normal. Yeah. Okay, good. So then he goes on. Ketanya, as it says, we learned that right up in the beginning of Chagiga, Bet Amud Bet, The emishum debur. So it says if it's because of speaking, my nafka mina says what do we care? Since he's intelligent, and he's also he's an adult, right? So then, right, the Shekhinah dwells on 10 people. So what do you care? So he goes on to say, Matzati katuv b'tshuva. He says, I found written in the tshuva. Afilu ela ilem. So this is also a person who's mute, can't speak, right? But he hears. Chayav b'mitzvot. He is liable for mitzvot. He's obligated to do mitzvot. That is considered to be intelligent. Hold it up for all the matters. Mistaref l'asa. So he does combine with 10. Even though he doesn't answer with them, he can't answer, right? He's mute. That's what it says there. So it says, it seems to me, it says this tshuva seems to be from Maharam, but what to say, it's talking about somebody who can hear. Because if he doesn't hear, he doesn't speak either. No, he's a deaf mute, right? That's already something else. So this is the deaf mute that they spoke about in the rabbis. In every place, where is that? Chagiga bet amud bet. But dino kedin shoteh. So a person like that, who's a deaf mute, we consider him to be a retard. Something is wrong there. His mind is not working properly. By the way, today, there are ways to solve this problem. Because they have all these methods, to get the deaf mutes to speak, not to speak, but to communicate, right? Whatever, communicate with them. So if we see that they can communicate and they understand you, with their language, right? Whatever that language is called, Braille, whatever it's called, right? So then you can see that he's intelligent. That's something else. But just your average deaf mute, we assume that he doesn't, he's not intelligent. That's what he's saying. Okay, very good. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. Says Shulchan Aruch, Cheresh hamdaber ve'eno shomea. If you have somebody who's deaf, he speaks but cannot hear. Or shomea ve'eno medaber, all the other way around. He hears but does not speak. Mute. They're considered to be intelligent. They do combine it with the minyan. But somebody who's a deaf mute, he's considered to be retarded, katan, like a child. Okay, very good. Let's come on a little bit. So now he brings the Bet Yosef. Katav Mordechai says, it says in the Mordechai, Siman Kuf Tet Zayin, the end mitzaref hakatan ledavar kedusha ad sheyeh ben yud shana, the chodesh ha'ibur bichlal. So again, right, he's repeating this halacha, but he's telling you something new over here, right? As we said, we need somebody who's 13 years old to combine with the minyan. But, right, what about when you have a leap year, right, which is, we have an extra month, two months of Adar instead of one. So now how do we calculate it, right, in a case like that? In other words, do we say that his birthday came in the first one, Adar Aleph, or the second one, Adar Bet? Which one is his real birthday? So it says, בחודש העיבור בכלל, כתבש מפרק כלשואל, גבי העיד מרחץ וגבי מזכיר בית לחברו. So it says from the Gemara, from the Talmud, comes out that leap month that we add is considered to be a part of the calculation, part of the cheshbon. Like we said, Yerushalmi, it says in Yerushalmi, the chazrat betulim toch 3 shanim, the betula, the ichur simanim tnuin beibur hashana. So he brings this Yerushalmi Gemara and he brings this pasuk in Tehillim, which says, right, Nun Zayin Gimel, Ekra Elohim Elyon, says, I'll call the exalted God, La'el Gomer Alai, the God who bequeaths me, whatever, right, grants me. So what do we learn from this verse in Tehillim? Let's just recap that. So, okay, so I'm just going to recap this a little bit. So it says, it brings Yerushalmi, right? What does it say in Yerushalmi, Ketubot? That Chazrat Betunim Toch Shalosh Shanim. Right, so that's an interesting halakha, which is somewhat practical, but maybe not today so much, but whatever. The point is like this, right? That, the woman has something called a hymen, right? The hymen is like that skin that, that blocks the entrance to the uterus, right? So, when she's a virgin, she has that, right? And then, eventually when she gets married, it breaks, right? With intercourse, it gets broken. So, there's a rule like this, right, which is brought down in the words of the Chazal, the sages, that if it was broken after the age of 3, it will never regenerate, right? It doesn't regenerate. It doesn't heal. That's it. Once you rip it, it's ripped. But if it ripped before the age of 3, so the rabbi said, then it will regenerate. It will come back. This is one of the rules that they have. So there is some practical difference. There's some practical issues there in halakha regarding this fact, whatever. And then there's another thing he says here, that when it comes to, having the signs of puberty, right, he says, we do count also the leap year as well, the leap month. So, okay, very good. So, right, so he brings this verse in Tehillim as a source for that. Why? Why is this verse a source? Because it says, La'el Gomer Alai, right? Gomer, the word Gomer means to complete. So that means it implies that it has to be a complete year, even though it's a leap year. Okay, so then he goes on to say, Katuv b'Sefer HaAgur b'Chidotav. It says in the Agur, in the Chidot, right? Chidot are like riddles. Okay, so let's see what that means. Shem nar echad nolad b'Chavtet le'Adar. Oh, Rishon, right? So let's say a boy was born in the 29th of Adar, the first month of Adar. Let's say there's 2 months of Adar. It's a leap year. So he was born on 29th of the first month, right? Mishana Meoberet, which was a leap year. And then we have another kid, Nolad be'Adar Sheni. He was born in the second month of Adar, Aleph, the first day of the second month. So we're talking about, right, these 2 boys are like 1 day apart, in terms of birthday. So it says, Ushnat Yud Gimel Ena Meubet, and it says, if the 13th year of these 2 kids is not a leap year, Oto Shenolad B'Chavtet B'Adar, so it says that kid was born on the 29th of Adar, Rishon, the first of Rishon, Adar, Tzarich Leamtin Ad Chavtet Yamim Chodesh Adar Sheni. He has to wait until the 29th of Adar. B'Shnat Yud Gimel, on 13th year. Ve'oto shenolad acharav, but the one that was born after him, the day after, on the leap year, the Echad be'Adar Hasheni yeh bo mitzvah bar mitzvah le'Adar B'Shnat Yud Gimel ki kvar ishlim Yud Gimel ki chodashim ata moneh l'shanim ve'yata moneh yamim l'shanim. Right, so it's very, very interesting halakha. So he says like this, right, that here it's like a sort of a, right, it defies logic over here, right? That even though actually one kid was born before the other, but since it was a leap year, what's going to be is that the one that was born second was born later, the day later, is going to celebrate his bar mitzvah like 29 days before. Because one was born on the 1st of Adar and one was born on the 29th of Adar. So therefore, it's going to be like a sort of a misnomer here, whatever you want to call it, right? That the younger one will celebrate his bar mitzvah earlier than the older one. That's what he's saying over here. Right? In modern Hebrew, they call this absurd. Like it's absurd. It's like absurd because it doesn't make sense, but that's the way it works. Even though it defies logic, but that's the way it is in halakha. So why is that? So it tells you, right, that the reason why it's that way in halakha is because we don't count years. When we count years, we count them according to the months, right? And not according to the days. So therefore, we go according to how many months pass by. And that's the reason why it comes out to be this absurd situation. Okay, good. Then it goes on. And says, we learn from this that which we have in the Arachin, the Gemara Arachin, Perek HaMochet Sadeu, this Perek. This rabbi says, he sold 2 houses, right? And let me just see 1 second. Give me a second. Okay, I guess we'll stop here. We'll stop it here because it's already going into something else here. So I'll give you a chance to rest a little bit your mind. We'll pick up this tomorrow. B'ezrat Hashem. Nice to have you tonight. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness, all the good things. And stay holy, stay focused. Don't forget the Omer, right? The girls don't need Omer, though the guys need Omer. But the girls, it's optional. Whatever if they want to do, they can do. They're not obligated to do Omer. Even the Ashkenazi ladies, they're not obligated. Okay, good. So Baruch Hashem. God bless you all. See you tomorrow. All the best. Chazak u'baruch.
Thank you, Papa.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.